UFOs on 2 occasions, and I had to do a hell of a lot of research to piece together what it could be. The MOD would say that was plasma. I would say it wasn't. I certainly knew what happened to me. And with somebody like me, this is the kind of theme they would go down. They could put somebody like me in the media spotlight, put it kind of like deflect away from peaceful UFO contacts and kind of like focus on the fear element, because as you well know, this world is all about fear, isn't it? InfoWars is all about confronting that fear, exposing the information, all that kind of thing. And so it's beneficial to crank it up in the media that these aliens are something to be feared and something to be attacked. It's very beneficial to do so.
On the subject of animal mutilations, I mean, these are occurring across the world with surgical precision. They find certain organs, certain body parts removed from cattle and other animals. Do you think they've also lumped that in with the whole UFO alien thing as a means of downplaying it and making the public think it's non-existent when in fact it's a very real phenomenon?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they are downplaying it, but I think it is a very real phenomenon. And the thing is that is a very big cover-up going on with that at the moment. I know of a man, and I recommend his book on Amazon, a guy called Mike Freeberry, who did a book about cattle mutilations, and he went to hell and back with Devon police here in the UK. I think it was Devon police who were refusing photographs to him regarding cattle mutilations. The point being, he was trying to assist them because he'd been doing independent research and he had tried to piece together what was going on, and he was offered to assist them, but Devon police refused. And so there was a big Freedom of Information Act bust-up over this, and he eventually got hold of the photos. And they reckon that it was not human what was doing this. I mean, the conclusion was that it was not human. Oddly enough, Paul, I was at a UFO conference and I was talking about all this. And a woman came up to me, as they so often do, who said that she worked for the civil service. She'd retired, but she was to do with issues of national security and the Ministry of Defence. Charming woman. She said that she'd rather not talk about too much, go into detail, but she was saying that cattle mutilations were a particularly nasty thing that they had to deal with, and it was causing great concern. But she didn't want to say any more because she'd retired, and she didn't want the public hassle of standing up and speaking, because she knew what it was like, she said, to be on the radar and harassed, which is what happens, Paul. It certainly is. And Mike Freeberry... Sorry, go on.
Why... From your experience, why are they performing these mutilations? What's the purpose?
Well, some would say that it is genetic. Researcher Linda Howe would say that it is genetic, that it is something that is actually involved in genetic breeding and genetic experimentation, and it needs large amounts of blood. I would say my semi-professional opinion on the cattle mutilation is that we are dealing with a specific non-human entity that is coming in and that is actually mutilating them. And I would concur with the researcher Mike Freeberry that there's a degree of psychopathy involved in this, that whatever they are, or whatever is causing it, whatever entity it is extremely nasty and extremely malevolent in its cause. But I also subscribe to the point of view that this, Paul, could be the military experimenting with precision lasers, which is a possibility that cannot be ruled out. I would suggest, yeah, definitely so.
Now, I want to look at it from a media perspective now, because a lot of UFO researchers are kind of maligned as kooks, as you mentioned earlier in the show. But then we have the History Channel, which routinely makes one-hour documentaries about UFOs. So it seems like the establishment media is trying to have its cake and eat it. On the one hand, they malign people who are into this subject as crazy and paranoid. On the other hand, they're producing slick, professional one-hour documentaries on places like the History Channel. Meanwhile, on the same channel, treating 9/11 truthers like, Holocaust deniers. So why are they trying to have it both ways? Why are they trying to promote UFOs as a real, genuine subject, while on the other hand dismissing it as kookdom?
Yes, indeed. They're not trying to... But I think what they're doing, and it's very subtle, but I think what the subject of UFOs and UFOlogy is an interesting one, because what they're doing, what you see in these documentaries, Paul, is just the documentaries are very focused on strange lights in the sky and what went on with those strange lights. That's what I feel. There's this continual run around about people following the strange lights in the sky and what they thought of the strange lights, and it could be and it couldn't be, and it doesn't seem to click onto any other level. It's in a very safe zone. As a result of that, people watch these programs. People, in fact, even go to the conferences, and you'll hear somebody like, now then, let me springs to mind, who's the guy, the rancher, Paul, who's the rancher with the UFO experiences? James Gilliland, is it? I saw him stand up at a conference, and he was talking about the fact that he'd met some occupants in the UFOs, and they came over to him and gave him a big hug, and this, that, and the other. Other researchers will stand up and talk about their experiences, but it's just not enough for people who are traumatized by these experiences and are trying to search for answers. They're not getting answers, and they're certainly not getting answers from the people who are writing the books and doing the documentaries. And people are banging their heads against wall. People have come up to me traumatized and told me some stuff. I mean, for the US listeners, the number of US Marines and former Vietnam veterans who have emailed me regarding UFO incidents in Vietnam. One guy emailed me to say that he actually guarded one. You know, it is absolutely unbelievable, and they're approaching with, you know, they're wary. They are trying to find answers and feel that they're not getting these answers. You have authors like Whitley Strieber. There's a book by Colonel John Alexander. The book talks about UFOs, but it doesn't. It talks about the meetings he had involving UFOs with other people. It just does not provide answers. That's what I feel, Paul, about the issue.
Now, one of the really hardcore cases in this subject is the Rendlesham Forest Bentwaters case, because this happened on a US military base in England, where, if I'm correct, nuclear technology or nuclear weapons were actually stored at the time. This was back, I believe, in the late 70s. Can you explain that case and its significance?
Well, I mean, Rendlesham Forest was classed as Britain's Roswell. Actually, Rendlesham had another incident in 1956 or 1950 thereabout. Well, it wasn't Rendlesham Forest. It was it's the U.S. Air Base near that actually had the UFO incident occur in the 1950s. Woodbridge, RAF Woodbridge had a UFO event in 1950. So it seems to be the repeated theme. Sorry, Paul. Say again.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yes, no, it seems to be the repeated theme of UFOs turning up on the premises. Now, the men of that Air Force Security Police Regiment have a Facebook page called Justice for the 82nd. What amazes me always about these incidents that happened in Rendlesham, where we've got the tape of the colonel, we've got all sorts happening, is that these men are clearly traumatized by what they saw, and they're clearly being lied to. And there's incidents of them being taken aside by intelligence people and then told to shut up and all that kind of thing. They're being continually lied to. And their frustration and trauma is certainly present on the Facebook page that they have, which is called Justice for the 82nd. And so I always find that there is a human factor that is very much missed, the effect that the UFO interaction has on people, because we're hidden in a veil, Paul. We're hidden in a veil where the wool has been pulled over our eyes, and we are not conditioned to accept other realities that are around us. We have this terrible, malevolent veil around the world at the moment, and so these men saw a glimpse outside of that. Some say, you know, the British MOD said that it was Orford Lighthouse, I think. There was a few other excuses going on about what it was and what it wasn't. But those men on that evening know what they saw at Rendlesham. The rumour was that it was some sort of engine problem that the UFO had, and it had landed on the ground, and etc., etc. Oddly enough, the other human factor occurs with the Berwyn Mountains incident, where I was at a conference giving a talk about the Berwyn Mountains UFO incident in Wales, and we had to shut the cameras off because a lady stepped forward. She didn't want to go public with this because she did not trust UFO researchers. UFO researchers were going into the village of Corwin, or whereabouts it happened, and they were pestering people, running off with exclusive rights to the media and all that kind of thing, and this lady had clearly had enough of all that. So we turned the cameras off, and she came out with this extraordinary story that is not published about the Berwyn Mountains UFO incident in Wales, about the fact that a number of children were suffering laser burns from the UFO incident that happened there and had to be taken to hospital. And she and 3 other people were once again traumatized, looking for questions, and we're not getting answers. And this comes across continually with incidents at Rendlesham, with incidents at the Berwyn Mountains, for the US audience, the former Marines and military people that email me from the US trying to find answers. And sometimes they'll go, Tony, can you explain this? And the answer is no, I can't. I had an incident this morning, Paul, before I got up, whereby once again I was attacked by mind-invasive technology. I can't explain why. I know that it's invasive. I know that it was telling me to shut up. I know that it's bullying. I know that they want this kept quiet because there's a shift, a paradigm shift across our world at the moment where the reality is changing and they don't want that to happen. So there's some very big human factors involved in UFO incidents, including Rendlesham. Those poor men, they're still searching for answers and they're still frustrated with their officers who they believe were bought or told to keep quiet, and they believe that their superior officers lied to them regarding the Rendlesham incident.
Now, we had David Icke on yesterday, Tony, and again he was getting into the theory that this evil, as you said, is so malevolent, so over the top, that he believes there's a non-human presence behind it once you go to the end of the line, and he's talking about, you know, shapeshifters and all this kind of stuff, which I personally don't believe. I believe that evil is at the core of this New World Order agenda. I haven't seen any solid evidence to say that it's, you know, off-planet aliens or interdimensional shapeshifters are responsible for it, apart from hearsay. I mean, I've read David's books, and he presents personal accounts of people that have apparently seen these individuals. I don't classify that as evidence. I classify it as hearsay. But, I mean, it's still open to debate. I mean, what do you think about this premise that these shapeshifters are controlling events from behind the scenes?
Well, it's hard to nail it down. We have got something that is controlling events behind the scenes, and a number of UFO researchers have concluded, and even Alex Jones on this show, I think, has concluded this, that there is a non-human intelligence behind the scenes that is driving all this. It's surprisingly enough, the remote viewer, for the US listeners now, the US military's remote viewer 001, Joseph McMonigle, who entered into the psychic spying program of the United States, had an incident with what he believed to be a reptilian in his living room, and he was awarded medals and so on and so forth. Now, these remote viewing programs were started in 1970, Paul, because the Soviets were making very big progress in psychic warfare. But if we rewind back to 1950 and 1949, the American intelligence and military was scratching its head, wondering why their planes were being shot out of the sky by UFOs, and it's documented. And they weren't just being shot out of the sky at tiny levels. There was things being blasted out of the sky left, right and centre by these UFOs. And at the time they were sending up F-94 Starfire fighters who were launching salvos of 12 missiles at a time and bringing them down. Now, back to what you're talking about. They therefore wondered what the cause was of these UFOs suddenly appearing en masse in their airspace. Could it be high-powered radar? They weren't sure. And so before the remote viewing programs of 1970 and psychic spying, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the FBI and the US Army formed something called the Collins Elite, which is like I'd class it as a psychic equivalent of Majestic 12, really, to find out what was going on. Their conclusion, and it's something I've concluded before I read this information, their conclusion was that the occult ritual occult goings-on had caused dimensional portals to open, and we were being invaded by something unknown, and they termed that unknown as non-human entity, or NHE, not alien. There's a difference between peaceful alien interaction and something that is malevolent and non-human entity. And I would call it demonic, Paul. I'd call it demonic. They called it demonic as well. And they concluded, to their horror, which I don't concur to, but the Collins elite concluded to their horror that there was a possibility that human souls were being abducted. But they definitely had collared and observed something that was extremely malevolent. And the thing is, you get these, like Bohemian Grove, what Alex has covered, what you